The Vanishing Neighbor. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a story that's sure to keep you on the edge of your seat. What happens when a beloved neighbor simply disappears without a trace? Well, let me take you to a quiet suburban neighborhood where a mystery is brewing, a mystery that left everyone unsettled. So imagine a typical suburban street lined with quaint houses and friendly faces. Everyone knows their neighbors, and it's a place where life just seems to flow smoothly. Among these residents was Mr. Briggs, a retired veteran, a soft-spoken guy with a strong heart. He had a special bond with Mrs. Willow, the elderly woman living next door. Their friendship was like that of an old couple. They shared stories, cups of tea, and lots of laughter. But one day, everything changed. It started on a regular Tuesday morning. Mr. Briggs noticed that Mrs. Willow's front door was ajar, something that just didn't sit right with him. He called out her name, but there was no answer. Pushing the door open, he discovered her belongings untouched and the house silent. Panic began to set in as he realized she was nowhere to be found. Neighbors rallied together, searching high and low, but it was as though she had vanished into thin air. Mr. Briggs felt a knot in his stomach. He couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had happened. Days turned into weeks, and the neighborhood buzzed with worry. The once lively chatter turned to whispers of foul play. There were rumors of a stranger lurking around, and strange things began happening. Children claimed to see a shadowy figure lurking in Mrs. Willow's garden after dark, while pets started howling and refusing to enter her empty house. Fear crept into the hearts of the residents, and even Mr. Briggs began to feel uneasy. Then, one chilly evening, a group of brave neighbors decided enough was enough. It was time to find out what was going on. Mr. Briggs, fueled by his concern for Mrs. Willow, led the charge. "We can't just sit back and do nothing," he urged his neighbors. They gathered together, hearts pounding, a mix of fear and determination coursing through them. Little did they know that night would change everything. As they approached Mrs. Willow's house, the air turned thick with suspense. The moon cast eerie shadows, and the gentle wind felt like a warning. Stepping onto the porch, a chilling breeze swept through, almost as if the house was alive. Mr. Briggs knocked, but there was no reply. As they stepped inside, a faint whisper echoed through the empty rooms, sending shivers down their spines. Was it the wind, or something deeper lurking within? Just as they decided it was best to leave, the front door slammed shut behind them. Panic set in. "What's happening?" one neighbor shouted. The air around them felt heavy, suffocating. Faces paled, and the reality of their situation dawned on them. They were trapped inside Mrs. Willow's house. Tension escalated among them as they paced nervously, wondering what they had stumbled into. Then, out of nowhere, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence. It echoed through the halls, sending them into a frenzy. One by one, the group began to vanish into the darkness, as if the house was swallowing them whole. "Where did they go?" Mr. Briggs exclaimed, fear etched across his face. As the numbers dwindled, the remaining neighbors realized they weren't just dealing with a simple mystery. They were in the grips of something far more sinister. When the dust finally settled, all that remained was silence and the haunting memory of those who had vanished. Mr. Briggs, devastated and heartbroken, was left standing alone in the empty house, his dear friend, Mrs. Willow, still missing, and now joined by the neighbors who had gone looking for her. The mystery lingered in the air like an unsolvable puzzle. What really happened that night? The questions would haunt the neighborhood long after. If you found this mystery intriguing and want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Join me for more chilling tales that remind us that sometimes the places we call home can hold the darkest secrets. Thanks for watching, and until next time, The Vanishing Neighbor.